Hello, welcome to the third installment of the read along. If you don't know what those words mean, I wrote a book called The Funny Thing About Forgiveness and have invited the folks who are reading this book to send in questions to my email, or there's a form on my website, or just comment on things or send messages on social media, and otherwise communicate like human beings and ask questions about one chapter at a time. So the idea is read one chapter each week and then send in questions. And then I've decided to just make time every week to do a live stream and respond to some thoughts and ideas and questions about that chapter. So this week is chapter 3, and that chapter is called Healing Your Soul Spine. And it's all about alignment and what that means for our inside selves and how it is that alignment can help us be the people we mean to be consistently. So my whole goal was to come on a little bit early so I could say all of that stuff and then get started with answering the actual questions right exactly at noon. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And actually, I'm going to get started with a question that is not sent in. It's not on my paper, but my daughter asked me an awesome question yesterday. I wanted to start with that. She asked me why I called it soul spine. And I think probably adults reading it will get it right away. But she was so cute, putting together for the first time the idea of if your spine is out of alignment, which is something that my kids are familiar with because I have all kinds of back issues and I have to go to physical therapy and things. But when your spine is not in alignment, it affects the rest of your body. And it's the same exact thing with your inside self. If that is not in alignment, it affects the rest of your life. It affects how you behave, how you treat people, how you interpret other people's behavior and words to you. So, yes, that is why I called it soul spine. So the first question that's officially on the paper. I've heard you talk about alignment and seen the trust diagram before. What's hard for me is that I pull myself into alignment on something only to find myself out of alignment on that same subject again later, sometimes later that same day. I can meditate and use curiosity to get into alignment for a while, but can't seem to stay there. So the place where the book is headed is about the deeper forgiveness work. But I did have some thoughts on when you're not at a place where you can go there, because we're not always at a place where we can really deal with what we know we need to deal with. And that's what's going on here. If the work of quickly getting into alignment, identifying some quick limiting beliefs, if that's not sticking, it's because that negativity and that pain that you keep coming back to and you keep feeling is pointing at a discovery you haven't made yet. And so if you're continuing to feel resentful, continuing to feel distrustful of someone, there's a deeper wound that needs to be addressed. And it probably can't be addressed through a quick, few minutes of EFT tapping or something like that. And that's where that proactive forgiveness process that we'll get to in the book really comes into play. And really, when you get down into the soul wound that is there and really addressing those deeper limiting beliefs, that's what will help your alignment last longer. But I did have some suggestions on what you could do in the meantime. So one thing that I like to do is give myself as many physical access points to that deeper truth that I've realized. So for example, I was on a call this morning with someone and she was out of alignment with a coworker. And the realization that she had was that in her head, she was believing, I need this person's approval. Her boss, it is not someone that is holding the keys to her success. So we did the actual mindfulness exercise. I'm holding an author copy right now. This, if you buy the book, that won't be there for real. But so we did the mindfulness exercise that I teach in this chapter together on the phone this morning. And what she realized is that she believes that. She believes that this person is holding the keys to her success. And so that deeper truth that she needed to access was, I'm holding the keys. I am the one that is controlling my future success, not this guy from my office whose approval I just feel like I need. And every time I don't get it, I'm frustrated and worried. And so then, in addition to just being irritated at his unprofessional behavior and his rudeness, frankly, instead of just receiving that as frustrating and, responding to that and setting a boundary around like how to communicate with me at work or whatever, it holds this deeper weight. It holds this weight of, if I don't have your approval, then I can't get where I need to be. And that makes us feel afraid. So she gets this deeper truth. But then what I suggest that you do, if you're getting to that place where you're like, it sounds like what is being said is, you can get to that deeper place of, okay, great, that's the deeper truth I needed to realize, but then you're losing that later in the day. So what I would do in that case is give yourself more interaction with that truth. So write it down also. You can't write as fast as you can think. And so forcing yourself to slow down and write something down. I have had so many moments of really powerful realization by just taking the time to write down a piece of information that I have just come to understand. And like something about that slowness gives my brain time to really process it in another way. Another thing is say it out loud. Sometimes I feel resistance around saying something out loud, especially if I think it's going to sound trivial. And I'm the queen of imagining that whoever I'm working it out with in my brain is like somehow hearing me in my office, and I get all weird about just saying it out loud. There's something really powerful about what you speak about your life and what you speak about your relationships. And so in addition to just having the realization, oh my God, I think this person, like, I feel like I need this person's approval or I can't grow how I need to. Write down, I'm holding the keys. Say it out loud. Give yourself more like physical access points with whatever deep truth helped you get into alignment. So that's what I would suggest if you're running into that same situation. But the other bigger, even more important thing is that if you keep feeling hurt and you keep getting knocked out of alignment, there's a deeper wound that needs to be addressed. And that's what the deeper forgiveness work that we're headed into later in the book, that's what that will help you do. It's just the reality that you can't always get down into trauma, like in the middle of your workday. So that's more of a put a pin in it, get back to it when you can situation. Okay, next question. What if the story you're telling yourself about someone, AKA the cathedral, isn't based on imagining a worst case scenario, but is based on their actual past behavior? There's a Maya Angelou quote that says, when someone shows you who they are, I know this quote, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I've been trying to reconcile that quote, which feels like very good advice, with this thought about trusting your scene partner, even though they've shown you challenging sides of themselves. I get that a whole lot. I think that Maya Angelou would agree with me if she were sitting with me right now, though, that okay, maybe the better way to say it is, who someone is right now is not the same as who they can become. And we are all more than the worst thing about us. I have been in situations where if someone wanted to tell themselves, I'm a racist, they could be right. I hold bias. I don't mean to, but it's there. It's subconsciously there. And so if what we're deciding is, if someone, this is what it really is. Do you ever notice how when someone is mean, when you see someone be a worst version of themselves, there's this little voice in your head that's like, the truth comes out. Now we see who they really are. This is why we love for like people that we admire to fuck it up in front of us. We really love that, because then there's like this, ha. So everything you said to me, like, I don't have to do all that work. Really, we're all down here in this cesspool of just being jerks, But the reality is that it's not the case that who we are in our worst moments is the real truth. It's not the case that like the truth is coming out and that's just who you really are. We're all more than the worst things about us. We're all more than the bad stuff. And so, yes, I have heard that quote from Maya Angelou before as well. And what I think that it invites us to do is just a genuine, real, sincere yes and. It's not ignore what exists. It's not pretend like that person doesn't have any growing to do. It's not pretend like what they said isn't hurtful. It's yes, but it's also and. And I am still capable of building something meaningful with imperfect people. Everything that exists in the whole wide world, imperfect people built. And so I think it's really important to, while we acknowledge our own shortcomings and the shortcomings of other people, not limit our ability to still do something great with them. And that's really, what this chapter is about. It's adjusting that mental narrative from, well, I'm walking into this conversation and I've seen how they've behaved before. I'm remembering past confrontations that we've had. I'm remembering, you just kind of get this reel going in your head of your most frustrating moments that most accurately justify the negativity that you're holding while you drive to work. And what I would love to invite you to do, and what I'm always trying to invite myself to do, is to say, okay, yes, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling this way. And yes, I know what it's about. And to believe that this person is more than how they did that one thing. And the reason that it's important, it's not about being a good person. It's not about like taking the high moral road or whatever. It's about understanding that ultimately, do you want to be right that this person is a jerk? Or do you want to build something amazing? What do you really want? And so if you want to build something amazing, which is what I want to do, then at some point you have to decide that, yes, I believe you, who you are. You've shown me who you are and I believe you. And I also believe, and now I'm a little scared because I don't know if it was Rumi who said this, but I think it was, that I'm going to get this quote not exactly right, but it's something to the effect of the person who irritates you the most is your teacher in the ugliest disguise. That's not going to be verbatim, but it's that idea of like, there is something for you here. There is something for you here. Ooh, you know what else it is? Don't miss the gift because of the wrapping paper. Like, there's so many really helpful things being offered to us that we just blow right past because they're not packaged in a way that feels receivable. And while I'm really keen on teaching people how to make the gifts they're trying to offer in the world receivable, not everyone has had the benefit from my incredibly brilliant teachings. And so, but it would be a real shame to miss out on building something meaningful with this person. Okay, next. When you talk about generational trauma, I feel like sweat on my stomach talking about this because I have this feeling like that this is something that's tender and sensitive. So I'm just going to be honest about that right now. When you talk about generational trauma or inherited narrative cathedrals, as you put it, you say towards the end of that section to keep the story without the cathedral. Could you offer more insight on this? Yeah, I can. And how I wish that we were in a coffee shop looking each other in the eyeballs having this conversation. So what I think that this is just like I was kind of saying a minute ago, it's a real yes and. It's a sincere yes and. There is no part of anything that I would ever teach or believe that says that when someone tells you their painful story of trauma and depression and injustice and what they've been through, that we have to have this like toxic positive, ignore it because it's uncomfortable and it's hard to hear. That's the opposite of yes and. That's no because. No, that can't be real because it makes me feel bad about myself and my skin, or it makes me uncomfortable and I don't know how to move forward. That's not what yes and is. Yes and is hearing, receiving, acknowledging, and understanding that really beautiful things can still happen also. And the idea of keep the story without the cathedral means hear that. The things that our families are passing down to us when it comes to trauma, when it comes to like the stories that we've told forever. And I have not experienced, racial injustice in my life, but a story that I have been handed is that, we're not the kind of people who can be wealthy. And also it's good people can't be wealthy. It's you got to work real hard and the integrity is in the struggle. That's the story for me. And what I'm hoping to communicate here is that we can receive the motivation and we can receive the inspiration and we can receive the foundation from those stories, from the stories that are also about, in my case, work ethic and integrity. We can receive the inspiration and the motivation to make things better from the stories that were handed to us without receiving the limiting belief that came with it. Because I do not believe, just like I say in this chapter, I don't believe that our ancestors told us their stories of struggle so that we would believe no good things were possible for us. I don't believe that the reason for sharing stories that are painful is so that people who come after you believe that everyone's out to get them and they better be living in fear and they better not, get too ambitious, that's not what your ancestors love you. That's not what they want for you. And so I think that what I'm trying to say in this part of this chapter is to receive that motivation and that inspiration without the limiting beliefs that tell you you can't trust the people around you who are holding a shared vision because of what they look like or because of what their financial circumstances are. I have carried a lot of suspicion. This is what it is that it's not accepting the suspicion along with it. And I have carried a lot of suspicion in my life toward people who maybe could have just helped me, who maybe could have been advocates for me. And my inherited story of who it's safe to trust and who it's not really got in my way. I felt a feeling when I said that just now. Yeah, so that's what I'm getting at there. If you have additional thoughts about it, or just more to say, absolutely leave a comment. And even if you are watching the replay later, I'll be checking for the comments and I'd be happy to respond or say more. My heart is like pounding right now. I know that this is a tender subject. And so I appreciate the willingness to engage that topic. And I hope that I've answered that sufficiently. Okay, the next question. Can you say more about how alignment helps us determine if we are running into a subconsciously held bias? Yes. This is maybe my favorite part of the work that I do because it's really easy. Like in our culture, we really celebrate trusting your gut. And there's this kind of like celebrated leadership, like leader caricature who's like I'm imagining NCIS right now. And how Gibbs is like always going with his gut and like no one believes him or gets it, but then he's right and they catch the bad guy. And there's just this whole like facts be damned, what does your gut tell you? And like evidence be damned, just listen to your gut. And there's this part of it that's so like helpful, and sometimes yes, but other times all the time it's helpful to understand that when you're out of alignment, you're not hearing some magic inner wisdom. You're hearing bias. And it may not always be, I know that word immediately means race these days, but what it means when you're out of alignment is just that you're running into a limiting belief some way, somehow. You're not hearing inner wisdom when you're out of alignment. You're hearing a fear narrative. And this is why when people are telling me, about something that happened and they're like, I could tell I was reading the room. Like I could tell everyone was thinking whatever. And I'm like, well, it sounds to me like you were feeling really defensive and insecure. So I don't think everyone was thinking something. I think that you ran into a fear narrative. That's all I mean here. So when you are in alignment, really what bias is, they're limiting beliefs about whatever. And alignment is how you identify those limiting beliefs so that you can use your mindful improv skill of choosing curiosity instead of judgment. Another way to say that is curiosity instead of certainty. And that's what's so helpful, so that when you get into alignment, you're starting to realize these gut feelings that I'm having, am I just uncomfortable? Because uncomfortable and unsafe are not the same thing. And so that's where I'm headed there. So I have said more about it. I think I have responded to that request. Okay, and then here's the last one. I love the idea. I need some water. Give me 1 second to take care of myself. Okay. The last one. I love the idea of embracing negativity as something helpful. Me too. In the mindfulness exercise for getting back into alignment. This is the same exercise I was talking about earlier that I did with someone on the phone this very morning. As someone who believes both in optimism and in allowing all feelings to be acceptable, I found this exercise to be helpful. Great. I'm so happy about that. I just this morning did this with somebody on the phone who was just feeling a feelings tornado, she said at the beginning of our call. And what I think is maybe the most important question when I'm feeling negativity is, what must I believe to feel this way? Because what I know, in this deepest part of who I am, is that all is well. It's okay. I have millions of scene partners all over the world that are holding my vision with me, that have all kinds of ideas I would never think of how to make our world a more just and beautiful and great place, and how to make offices and companies more just and inclusive and wonderful, and how for leaders to make the world a better place by being who they mean to be on a regular basis. There are people all over that are holding that vision with me. So it's okay if I need some time on the bench. It's okay, if I can't do it right now. And so all is well, all is well, all things are working together. That's what I know is true. And when I'm feeling negativity, that can be a really helpful feeling if you stop yourself from feeling bad about it and try to tell yourself, like I heard the expression toxic positivity for the first time at some point in the pandemic. And I panicked because I appreciate positivity. And I was like, is this about me? Am I toxic positivity? And no is the answer to that question. But I do think that negativity isn't helpful it's not helpful to stay there. That's what I'm trying to say. And so when we are feeling it, instead of shoving it out of the way, that's what toxic positivity would be. Oops, I'm not allowed to feel that. Oops, I'm not allowed to feel that. And that's not what we ever need to do with it. Negativity can be such a helpful guide to something that you haven't discovered yet. Some meaningful truth or limiting belief or just clarity on the situation. Maybe what it is that negativity is like, this is about to be the cheesiest thing I've ever said in front of people. It's the acorn and clarity is the oak tree. Okay, if I could edit that, I would. But this is live, so we're stuck with it. Anyway, negativity can be super helpful. I agree. I'm glad that others agree as well. That's the end of the questions. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you have additional questions or if you're just enjoying this conversation about the book and the chapter. Let me know in the comments. It feeds my ego and it gives me the motivation to keep going. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you all. I appreciate the ones of you who are reading this book and letting me know that it's meaningful to you. That's my whole desire. That was why I wrote it, was just having this conversation with people and moving thought forward on the idea of what it means to be a brave person and a wholehearted leader. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll be back next week. Send your questions on chapter 4, either to my email, andrea@andbeyondimprov.com, or use the form on my website, or just tell me in some other way that you have a question. All right, bye guys, see you next week.